All right, so I want to talk to you guys today about if you're a truck driver, you should definitely be living out of the truck and going local. What I did, like if you see this when you look behind in your truck, you messed up. You know, I understand if you're married with kids, you have to, or like it's something that you really want to be, like you want to be around for your kids. I understand, right? I'm talking to mainly single people, single men and women who are truck drivers, why you should live in your truck to get the most out of trucking. Okay. If it just so happens that, later on in your life you get married with kids and it changes, you'll still be thankful that for a period that you lived in your truck for a period of time because you can get ahead financially. You can get ahead of most people out here just by living in your truck. I made a video. I got a lot of this information from Trucker Brown, but me too. I made a video in the beginning of this YouTube channel. I think I titled it like How Anyone Can Get Rich in Trucking. And the main theme was living out of your truck. I was talking about you could use this money to start a business and diversify and have passive income while you're living in your truck. And you can, but you don't need to start a business. You can live in your truck for a good 20 to 30 years. The same time that someone in medical, in the construction unions, in the trades, in the corporate world is going to spend like the typical amount of time, 25 to 30 years that people spend in any field. You should be living in your truck for that amount of time. And you will retire a multimillionaire. Okay. If you're living in your truck, and I recommend regional, not OTR. OTR is just way too healthy and it's not sustainable. Um, Regional is way more sustainable because unlike OTR, you come home usually every 2 weeks. So you're out 1 week and you come home the next for a 34-hour reset. Only for a 34-hour reset because you do want to be out there on the road. But coming home for like a day and a half, that's more than enough time to, number one, go grocery shopping. Do everything else you need to do, like laundry, see your old lady, whatever errands you need to do. But number one, go grocery shopping. Okay. The reason why OTR is not sustainable, again, I saw this with Trucker Brown, but you see this with truck drivers all the time. The reason why over the road truck drivers become so unhealthy and out of shape, and they have medical emergencies like a stroke, a heart attack, diabetes, and like things happen, like they're literally driving the truck and they pass out at the wheel from like blood sugar or a stroke or a heart attack or whatever, a medical emergency because they're unhealthy and they pass out behind the truck. Some of these catastrophic accidents you see aren't because people are driving stupid. Some of these are seasoned drivers that are they're sick. They're unhealthy. The job is literally killing them and it's the food that's killing them. And the reason why this happens isn't because these guys intentionally get themselves sick. It's because they get addicted to the money that OTR pays. They get addicted to running their clock out every day, every week, and which gets them around like $18 to $2,000 take home when they're really putting in the miles like that on a CPM basis. Even like at CR England Night Transportation, right? Even at a mega carrier like that, which most people would say is a starter company, if you run your clock out and you're really busting out miles like that, oh yeah, dude, you'll bring home like $1,900 a week consistently all month. And OTR drivers, they stay out for months on end and they get addicted to making that much money. They get addicted to every week it's 2 grand, 2 grand, 2 grand. They get addicted to that. And that's what keeps them out. And it keeps them out to the point where they're running the truck so efficient that their health and things that they should be keeping up with goes to the wayside. They choose wealth over health, and in the long run, that never works. And you see it when these guys get old and they get sick, or when they get older and sick. Some of them, like I said, what Trucker Brown, I think he's in his like 30s or 40s, and he had a stroke. That's young to have a stroke, but it happens to truck drivers all the time. They get addicted to the money. They stay out there and they don't do things like a regional driver does. They don't do things like come home every other week to stock up on healthy food from the grocery store. So they're running their truck really efficient. Damn, helicopter just pulled up right now. There's like 4 cops just pulled up. Is that CHP? Someone's going to jail, right? Anyways, they do things like they talk to the DM, and if they're like a real runner like that, they'd be like, okay, where do you need me to shut down at to be closer to my next load when I get off of my 34-hour reset, right? Or my backhaul or whatever. And it's like, oh, Iowa 80 or Pilot Flying J over here, this truck stop over here. And I don't know if you've noticed, a lot of truck stops, they're like outside of town. They're in the middle of nowhere a lot of the times, especially the deeper you go into the country. So a lot of these guys, they end up living off of truck stop food and like fast food and restaurants and stuff like that. And that's how it starts. That's how these guys become diabetics and they have heart attacks and strokes. And those type of guys, a lot of them don't make it through a whole like 20 to 30 year career. The ones that stay out for months on end and they put their health to the wayside because they're out here getting addicted to the money. This is why I recommend you to live in your truck, but do regional so you can keep up with your health. So you can come home and stock up on healthy food and eat that instead of, everything that's at the truck stop. And yeah, you'll make less money, but you'll be making like pretty much, you could crack that $1,800 a week, but your second week, you're going to make less than that. You'll probably bring home like $1,200, $1,300. And the week before that, when you're running hard, you'll make like $1,500, $1,600 take home. But dude, if you're living out of the truck, that's more than enough money for you. And that's something that you can sustain for 25 years living in the truck. If I was getting paid on average $1,500 to $1,200 a week, I would take $400 to $500 out of that and just throw it in an index fund, right? Throw it in a Roth IRA and like an index fund. I'd have two investments, right? I'd have a Roth IRA, like my 401k, and an index fund. And throughout, some times of the year when I'm sitting on a couple thousand, maybe I'll throw a whole check into my 401k if I really don't need it. If you're sitting on like what, 15, 20, 30 G's halfway through the year, you could afford to, throw a couple checks, just max out your contribution to your 401k and just keep throwing money into your index fund, right? You do that for a 25 to 30 year period, you will retire as a multi-millionaire, as a truck driver. You don't have to start a business. You don't have to become an owner operator. You could do this as a company driver at Swift, Knight Transportation, JB Hunt, CR England. If you can get on an account where they let you live out of the truck, right? It's definitely doable. And like I said, it doesn't have to be torturous. You don't have to be like just some loner dude with no life who lives in the truck. No, man. You still have things like PTO. You can always add a day or two off. What I think is sustainable, because we're talking about sustainability. How could you sustain this for the next 20 to 30 years? You don't want life to pass you by. You don't want to look back on, your 30s and 40s and be like, man, I spent all this time in the truck at work and I didn't really do anything. No, what I would do is I tell my DMO, look, I'm going to stay here for this whole career, but every 2 months, at the end of the second month, I'm going to add 3 or 4 days to my 34-hour reset, right? Or once every 90 days, so you could really bring in the money. Once every 3 months, DM or a manager or dispatcher, I'm going to take 4 days off once every 3 months. You know what I mean? And if you need me during peak season, during the holidays, I'll just bust out my 34s. But throughout the rest of the year, every 2 to 3 months, I'm going to take like a little mini vacation, a little 4 or 5 days off, right? So you got your 34-hour reset, which is a day and a half off. You add 3 or 4 days on top of that. By then, you're sitting on thousands of dollars. You could take your girlfriend, your friends, family. You can go do something like, I don't know, go stay in a luxurious hotel on the coast of Santa Barbara or Pismo Beach or Laguna Beach, or go out to New York for a few days or whatever. Like, you could really live life lavish because you don't have bills. All of your money's going in your pocket. You look up and like by the end of the year, you're sitting on seriously maybe like $40,000 in your bank account. And half of that, like if you're making 80,000, 90,000, half of that should be invested and the other half you could just sit on it. And like your tax returns, say your tax returns is like what, 10, 11, $12,000, that all goes into the Roth IRA. This is the kind of stuff that you can do. This is how you get the most out of trucking. The worst thing is to be a truck driver like this, local, and you work hard and you see that big old fat paycheck that you made, and it's going to the mortgage, it's going to the landlord, it's going to the utilities, your power bill, insurance, your car. You do that, by the end of your career, you're not going to really have nothing. You're, you know what I saw when I was looking to rent out rooms in the Bay Area? I saw a bunch of old people living on Social Security renting out rooms in the Bay Area for like $1,000 a pop. That's how like the average room in the Bay Area, like to live with in houses, like it's a common thing, almost like New York City. People rent out rooms in the Bay Area because it's so expensive. And most of the people that do that aren't even youngsters. Most of the people that do that are old people on Social Security who don't really have a retirement outside of Social Security. That's going to most likely be you staying at a local gig. Even if you're making like $120,000, you'll have something in your 401k, right? But if you're living, dude, if you're living like in a lot of the main areas like Texas, California, the East Coast, Florida, Nevada, Phoenix, I mean, Arizona, Idaho is expensive. The whole country's getting expensive, right? If you live in like the main areas outside of like, I don't know, Mississippi or the Midwest, like the really cheap states like West Virginia, anything outside of that, and you're a trucker and you're local, you're not really going to be left with much of a retirement. But if you just live in the truck, and you really got to like reprogram yourself to think like, it's actually okay to live in the truck, right? If I live a balanced life and I keep up with my health, and even in the truck, like I would bring some workout equipment, like a pull-up bar, right? Little things for the push-ups, like the handles you put on the floor and you can do push-ups, a jump rope for cardio, like maybe 2 dumbbells, right? Where the ones where you could put add the weight and take off the weight or whatever, and just work out 30 minutes a day on your 30-minute break. You keep up with your health, you're stacking money. When you do take time off, you go out and make sure that you have a good time so you have something to look forward to. So you live in a well-balanced life. That way you don't end up like the average truck driver that's like some depressed, lonely truck driver that, yeah, he has money, or not, you know what I'm saying? And you're just like living, those truck drivers that turn into like loners and they're real depressed. Dude, that's self-sabotage. You don't need to do that. You could live a balanced life living in the truck and retire rich, retire with like 5 or 6, $7 million, dude. If you invest every year, think about it. You're making $90,000 or $100,000 a year as a regional truck driver, which is doable, which is very doable. If you're putting in the work, you could invest half of that. Imagine investing $50,000 a year into your index fund and 401k and Roth IRA for a 25 to 30-year span with the interest that's going to accumulate, dude. You're going to be a multimillionaire. You're going to be set by the time you're 60 years old. By the time you're 60 years old, you won't have to drive a truck if you want. But dude, you could literally go buy a house for like $1 million somewhere on the coast or something and just chill, or whatever, wherever you want to go. You could leave the United States and go live like a king in South America. I don't know, somewhere where our money goes far. You could do whatever you want. What other career without a college degree is going to allow you, you know, to retire as a multimillionaire? And what, you can't live in the truck because that's not much of a life? You don't want life to pass you by? Let me tell you something, dude. This is where I agree with Trucker Brown. Okay, I disagree with Trucker Brown because he pushes OTR, but I do agree with him that a lot of the stuff that guys say they want is indoctrination. Here's the truth. You don't need the wife. You don't need the kids. You don't need the house with the mortgage, the 30-year mortgage that takes most of your wealth. You don't need that. You just don't need it. You really don't need it. If it happens in your life that you meet someone that you want to settle down with, just imagine if that happens 10 years into your trucking career and then you decide to go local. Well, aren't you glad that 10 years before that, you've been investing $50,000 into your retirement accounts, into your index funds, your 401k, your Roth, and then you want to settle down? You see how it's still worth it? You'll have another, 15 years after that, right? It's worth it, dude. It's worth it. But like I said, the things that you think you're missing out on, you're really not. If you really saw how stressed out a lot of married couples are, especially these days with the cost of living, the number one reason why people get divorced is because of financial problems, right? They're not making enough money and things are just too expensive, and it turns into bickering and fighting, and it goes into other aspects of their marriage, and they get divorced. Things get nasty and they get divorced, and the divorce is nasty. Dude, when I started trucking, Half of the yard at CR England of guys that had assigned trucks and they were living in the trucks were guys that were divorced, and they're paying like an alimony and a child support, and they're just living in the truck. You don't need these things. You don't need a house. You don't need a car. If you do really need those things, I'm telling you right now, for like a whole career, you're going to end up just like everyone else, broke, living paycheck to paycheck, especially if you live in places like the main areas like California, Texas, like anywhere on these coasts. You know what I mean? And even in like a lot of the parts in the middle of the country too, you're going to end up just like everyone else. And when you retire, you're not going to have much. I'm telling you, dude, to get the most out of trucking, you need to live in the truck. Be sure to smash the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think about this, right? These guys that you see on here that are on YouTube bragging about their house, bragging, like they come onto YouTube and they flex like these vloggers that show off all their cars, their big old house and all that. A lot of that is the indoctrination. That right there, it lets you like, oh, damn, if I got my CDL, that's going to afford me to buy this like really nice sports car and get this really nice house and have the trophy wife and all that, right? A lot of these guys are broke. That's going to be the downfall of a lot of these guys, dude. Just imagine that money that they spent on the sports car, the house, the wedding. These people, they want to have these, dude, people, they go into debt for a wedding for like 25, 30, 50 G's, dude, for a wedding for one day. They go into so much debt. They take out loans and they borrow on their house and they take out of their 401k and then they put the rest of it on a credit card for a wedding for one day. And then for years, they're paying that back plus interest, dude. You end up like the rest of people, dude. If you don't want what the rest of society gets, you need to do what other people are not doing. And most people aren't going to live in their truck, dude. Most people, you hear about it all the time right here on YouTube. Oh, trucking is just something that you do for a small period of your life. You make your money, then you get out. Get out to do what? To take the money that should be going into your retirement, into your index funds, into your 401k, your Roth. You're going to give all that to a landlord because I made my money in trucking. Now I'm going to get out. Telling you, those are the people that end up with nothing, that end up just like everyone else, dude. Think about it. Really, hear me out. You can work for Swift, live in the truck for 25 to 30 years, retire with $5 to $7 million from all of your investments, from all of your and have a lot of money saved up. And you could literally buy a house in California close to the coast. You could buy a house for like 1.2 million. You still got another 5 or 4 million. You're straight. You're good. What other career is going to allow you to do that? The only way that you let that opportunity pass you up is if you let the indoctrination that happens to you from when you're a kid. You look at your parents and they're married with a house, with the roof over their head, and you kids, you and your siblings, and you think, okay, these are my role models. This is what I need to do when I get older. I need to get married like my dad and my mom and have kids and buy a house or whatever. Like I need to do that. Like this is what I need to do. This is what adulting is like, right? And sure it is, but we have to be honest. Our country, it's not the same way that it was 20 years ago when we were growing up, when we were kids. It's not. This country is a lot different now. Like the elites have pretty much taken over this country, and everyone else, like you're either rich or you're poor. And trucking gives you the opportunity to go from poor to rich if you use this career right. Live in your truck. Live in your truck, dude. All this struggling you see going on out here, all these people on TikTok and whatever, YouTube, making these little like phone videos when they're crying about why are groceries so expensive? I just got fired from my job. I got laid off. These jobs don't pay nothing or whatever. Inflation, politics. No. You don't need to worry about none of that. You can have financial freedom during your trucking career and definitely after your trucking career if you just live out of the truck. If you recognize what's going on and you look at everyone else, be like, yeah, sure, they're married with kids, but dude, look at them. They're actually pretty miserable. And if they lose their job, they got a house built on a deck of cards. They're living in a glass house. These guys with like houses and cars and kids and a wife, if they lose their job, they get sick and they can't work anymore, they're through. They're done. They're done. Sure, that could happen to you, the single guy living in the truck. But dude, say you get sick 10 years into it, right? You come down with, knock on wood, a cancer or something bad like that, dude. You got so much, you've been investing for the past 10 years. You're straight. It'll hurt, but not as much as it's going to hurt the guy that went out and built this really expensive American life, the American dream. These guys that, you see them owning houses, they don't own the house. The house owns them. The house owns them. That's why they have to keep getting up and going to work. And if they lose their job, dude, that house is it's getting foreclosed on. They're going to have to file for bankruptcy. Might lose their wife. Their life is definitely going to change. It's definitely going to be a humbling and just shitty moment. I don't wish that on anyone. But as a truck driver, you have the option to opt out of that. You have the option to really embrace this alternative lifestyle. The same way like the van lifers, the same way people that live van life, they live an alternative lifestyle. And if you really notice the van lifers, don't they seem a little happier than everyone else out in society that is like paying rent, paying bills, barely getting by, right? These van lifers, if you ask me on YouTube, they seem to be really happy and content rather than these people that go onto TikTok and they're complaining about the cost of living, groceries, inflation. You as a truck driver, you're pretty much like a rich van lifer. You don't need to start a YouTube channel, dude. You can just live in your truck and just ball out and have fun on your 34-hour resets and really enjoy your PTO. You can do things that people need to save up all year for. Like I said, you take every 3 months, you take 3 or 4 days off. You could have a luxurious vacation that normal people with the house, cars, and kids need to save up all year for. Some people don't ever go on vacations, but if they do, it's like once a year and they save up all year. Maybe they save up 2 years to do it because everything in their life is so expensive. You've been on like three or four lavish vacations throughout the year where you just, you take your girl and you guys are in the hotel suite at the top floor with the view of the city, the view of the coast, the view of the bay, with the champagne on ice and the rose petals and like the real expensive jacuzzi in there. And you guys are eating out at like 5-star restaurants and going shopping and I don't know, like front seats at the Dodgers or Giants game or whatever, like stuff like that. Like you're living like a baller like that during your trucking career. While you're in it, you're having fun while you're a truck driver, right? And yeah, most of the time is spent at work, but when it's not spent at work, in order to balance this out, you treat yourself. Because, dude, you got the money to treat yourself, dude. Why wouldn't you? You got the money to wear really nice, expensive clothes and invest in your retirement. And on your 3 or 4 days off that you use your PTO for, you really use your PTO and enjoy it. Unlike most people, they get their check and it's just gone. It's gone. Be sure to smash the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel. I really hope this message got through to people, dude. I'm in the process of getting back into a sleeper. And now, since I've bumped my head in trucking, yeah, I'm ready to just live in the sleeper for the rest of my trucking career. And, if AI takes my job, then, AI is going to take my job someday. If it happens during my trucking career, I know I've said that, hey, it happens. But until then, dude, I'm just going to live in a truck and just stack this bread, dude. If it doesn't happen here, I want it to happen here at my job. But, if I need to go to another company, because this is more of like they have a lot of local work right here. I might not be able to like sleep in the truck like that. But if not here, then yeah, I'll find another trucking company that preferably has APUs so I'm comfortable in the truck. And dude, I'm ready. I'm ready. I've learned. Going local, I've learned. I've bumped my head, right? I dropped myself on my own head in trucking. I've always known this, but now I like really understand. I'm the type of guy, like I'm so hard-headed, I need to really like fall down a couple times until I get back up on my feet and I get it. You know what I'm saying? Be sure to smash the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel. I hope this message got through to someone. Live in your truck. Don't let this trucking opportunity pass you by. Get the most out of trucking by living in your truck. You will retire a rich truck driver, whether you're a man or a woman or Live in the truck, dude. You're going to be rich. You'll thank me later, right? Peace out.